What if the very foundations of our morality, our sense of purpose, were built on an illusion that is now crumbling? What if the death of God, proclaimed over a century ago, was not a declaration of atheism, but a chilling prophecy of a world unmoored, adrift in a sea of meaninglessness? This is the uncomfortable precipice to which Friedrich Nietzsche led us, forcing a confrontation with truths many still dare not whisper. This nihilism, Nietzsche warned, could manifest in several ways. One is passive nihilism, a state of weariness, resignation, and a retreat from life. If all is meaningless, why strive? Why create? Why even bother? It's a seductive apathy, a quiet surrender to the void. This is a state of spiritual exhaustion where the will to live itself begins to fade. Then there is active nihilism, a more destructive force. It can manifest as a desperate attempt to impose some order, any order, even through violence or totalitarian ideologies, to fill the vacuum left by God. Or it can be a cynical destruction of all existing values, a lashing out against a world perceived as absurd. This form of nihilism is not just despair, but a rebellion against meaninglessness. Nietzsche saw that humanity was ill-prepared for this spiritual crisis. For centuries, our values had been given to us from on high. We had not learned to create them for ourselves. The death of God, therefore, presented not just a loss, but an immense, terrifying challenge. The challenge of becoming our own value creators, of finding meaning in a world devoid of prepackaged answers. One of Nietzsche's most chilling prophecies was the rise of the last man. This is his vision of where humanity might end up if it fails to overcome nihilism and create new, life-affirming values. The last man is the epitome of mediocrity, comfort, and shallow contentment. He seeks only security and trivial pleasures, having extinguished all ambition for greatness or self-overcoming. He is a creature of pure passivity. The last man proclaims, "We have invented happiness," and blinks. For him, struggle, suffering, and risk are things to be avoided at all costs. He values health above all, takes his little poison for pleasant dreams and another little poison for a pleasant death. There are no more rich or poor, no rulers or ruled, only a bland, undifferentiated herd, each content in their small, unthreatening world. This is the ultimate degradation. Nietzsche viewed the prospect of the last man with utter horror. It represented the end of human potential, the triumph of nihilistic comfort over the drive for meaning and excellence. "The earth has become small," he wrote, "and on it hops the last man who makes everything small." This warning is perhaps more relevant today than ever, in an age of mass consumerism and the relentless pursuit of effortless comfort. So, what is the alternative to nihilism and the last man? Nietzsche introduces the concept of the will to power, perhaps his most controversial and frequently misinterpreted idea. It is not, as often caricatured, a crude desire for political domination or brute force over others. Such an interpretation is a simplistic and dangerous misunderstanding. For Nietzsche, the will to power is the fundamental driving force of all life, an intrinsic impulse towards growth, strength, expansion, self-mastery, and the overcoming of resistance. It is the artist's drive to create, the philosopher's urge to understand, the athlete's push for excellence, the individual's striving to become more than they currently are. It is about self-overcoming, not other-dominating. The will to power seeks to impose its own interpretations and values onto the world, to shape reality according to its own creative energies. In a universe without inherent meaning, the will to power is the source of all meaning that we can create. It is the affirmation of life in all its beauty and its terror, its joy and its suffering. It is saying yes to existence, even in its harshest aspects. This creative manifestation of the will to power is embodied in Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or overman. This is not a master race, nor a tyrannical figure. The Übermensch is an ideal, a goal for humanity to strive for in a post-God world. He is the individual who has overcome nihilism, embraced the will to power creatively, and forged his own values, becoming a bridge to a higher form of humanity. This isn't merely an academic exercise in philosophy. Nietzsche's warnings resonate with a terrifying clarity in our modern age, an age marked by existential anxieties, a frantic search for meaning, and the creeping shadow of nihilism. The death of God isn't just a historical event. It's an ongoing psychological drama playing out within each of us and within society at large. Understanding this is crucial to navigating our present. The Übermensch understands that God is dead and accepts the awesome responsibility that comes with this knowledge. He does not seek comfort or conformity like the last man. Instead, he affirms life, including its inevitable suffering as part of a grand, creative process. He is a creator of values, a lawgiver unto himself, yet his values are life-affirming and aim to elevate, not diminish, the human spirit. He is what humanity could become. The path to the Übermensch is one of self-overcoming. This means constantly challenging one's own limitations, prejudices, and inherited beliefs. It requires courage, discipline, and a willingness to endure hardship for the sake of growth. It's an internal battle, a constant striving to transcend the merely human, the all-too-human, within oneself. This is an arduous path, not meant for everyone. Nietzsche believed that traditional morality, particularly what he termed slave morality, originating from resentment of the weak against the strong, had suppressed the will to power and hindered the emergence of higher human types. This morality, he argued, valued qualities like pity, humility, and kindness not as genuine virtues, but as tools for the weak to control and negate the strong. This was a radical reevaluation. In contrast, master morality, as Nietzsche saw it, arises from the strong individual who defines good and bad from a position of power and self-confidence. Good is what affirms their strength, nobility, and creativity. Bad is what is common, weak, or vulgar. This isn't about oppressing others, but about an internal standard of excellence and a refusal to be bound by the values of the herd. This is easily misunderstood. The creation of new values is, for Nietzsche, the ultimate task for humanity in the wake of God's death. It means moving beyond good and evil as traditionally defined, and forging a new ethical framework rooted in the affirmation of life and the will to power. This is not a call for amorality, but for a new morality, one that serves life's highest potential rather than denying it. This is an incredibly difficult task. Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence serves as a profound psychological test for this life affirmation. Imagine that every moment of your life, in all its joy and all its suffering, will repeat itself an infinite number of times in exactly the same sequence. Would you despair at this thought, or could you embrace it, willing this eternal repetition? Only one who truly loves life could say yes. The ability to affirm eternal recurrence is the ultimate expression of the will to power for Nietzsche. It means accepting and loving one's fate, amor fati, to such an extent that one would will nothing to be different, not for all eternity. This is not passive resignation, but an active, joyful embrace of everything that is, was, or will be. It is the highest state a free spirit can attain. Nietzsche's philosophy is undeniably harsh. It offers no easy comforts, no simple solutions. It demands immense courage to face the truths he uncovers, the death of old certainties, the specter of nihilism, the mediocrity of the last man, and the daunting task of self-creation. He doesn't provide a map, but rather a challenge. He warned that the path to overcoming nihilism and avoiding the fate of the last man is not for the masses, but for exceptional individuals, the free spirits who are willing to experiment with life and values. These are the individuals who can endure isolation and misunderstanding in their pursuit of a higher mode of being. They are the vanguard of a potential future. The charge of elitism is often leveled against Nietzsche, and perhaps not without some justification. However, his concern was with the elevation of the human spirit as a whole, even if pioneered by a few. He believed that the health and vitality of a culture depended on its ability to produce such exceptional individuals who could chart new paths for humanity. Their struggles benefit all. But Nietzsche didn't just diagnose the illness. He also hinted at a radical, demanding cure. He foresaw the dangers of comfortable conformity and the seductive abyss of nothingness. This video will delve into the specific, often misunderstood, harsh truths. He laid bare prophecies that many dismissed as madness, but which now appear chillingly accurate. We will uncover the warnings he left, not as a prophet of doom, but as a physician of culture. One of the most persistent harsh truths Nietzsche confronted us with is the role of suffering. He did not believe suffering was inherently bad or to be avoided at all costs. Instead, he saw it as an indispensable condition for growth, creativity, and the deepening of the human spirit. That which does not kill us makes us stronger is one of his most famous and often trivialized aphorisms. True strength is forged in adversity. For Nietzsche, to wish away suffering is to wish away the very possibility of greatness. The highest human achievements, the most profound insights, often emerge from periods of intense struggle and pain. The discipline of great suffering, he suggested, is what has created all enhancements of man so far. This is a difficult truth to accept in a comfort-seeking world. Another harsh truth is Nietzsche's critique of herd morality and its leveling effect. He saw society, particularly in its democratic and socialist tendencies of his time, as often promoting a conformity that stifles individuality and excellence. The pressure to fit in, to think like everyone else, to avoid standing out, this, he argued, leads to the diminishment of human potential and paves the way for the last man. It is a subtle but powerful pressure. Nietzsche's call was for a transvaluation of all values, a radical re-examination and overturning of established moral hierarchies. What was once considered good, humility, pity, selflessness in certain contexts, might need to be re-evaluated if it hinders life affirmation and the will to power. What was evil, pride, ambition, self-assertion might contain the seeds of future greatness. This is dangerous territory, requiring immense discernment. This doesn't mean a simple inversion where vice becomes virtue. It's far more nuanced. It means understanding the origins and consequences of our values. Whose interests do they serve? Do they promote strength, health, and creativity, or weakness, sickness, and stagnation? Nietzsche forces us to ask these uncomfortable questions about the very moral air we breathe. The truth itself, for Nietzsche, was not some fixed, objective entity waiting to be discovered. Instead, he adopted a perspectivist view. There are no absolute facts, only interpretations. Each interpretation is an expression of the will to power of the interpreter. This doesn't mean all interpretations are equal. Some are life-enhancing, others life-denying. This is a profound challenge to traditional epistemology. So if truth is perspectival, how do we navigate? Nietzsche suggests that the strongest perspectives are those that can incorporate the most phenomena, that can organize chaos into a meaningful, life-affirming order. The creator of values doesn't just passively accept a perspective. They actively forge one that enhances their power to live and create. This is a dynamic, ongoing process. The harsh truth about human nature for Nietzsche is that we are not inherently good or rational creatures. We are driven by instincts, passions, and the will to power. Civilization and morality are often thin veneers over these more primal forces. Recognizing this is not a cause for despair, but a starting point for understanding ourselves more honestly and for channeling these forces towards higher ends. Nietzsche's emphasis on the body and physiology was also radical for his time. He saw thought and spirit as deeply intertwined with bodily health and vitality. A sick or weak body, he believed, often leads to a sick or weak philosophy, one that denies life and seeks escape. Conversely, a strong, healthy physiology is conducive to life-affirming values. This was a rejection of mind-body dualism. The implications for education and self-cultivation are profound. Nietzsche advocated for an education that strengthens the will, cultivates taste, and encourages critical thinking, rather than simply imparting information or enforcing conformity. It's about becoming who you are, a unique individual, not a mere copy. This requires a certain ruthlessness towards one's own weaknesses. What happens when an entire civilization loses its ultimate source of meaning and value, What fills the void? Nietzsche presented us with stark choices: the descent into the comfortable oblivion of the last man, or the perilous ascent towards the Übermensch. Are we, today, unknowingly drifting towards one of these fates? The answer might be more unsettling than we imagine. Nietzsche's ideas were, and remain, dangerous. They have been co-opted and distorted by nefarious ideologies, most notably Nazism, which twisted the Übermensch and will to power into justifications for racial supremacy and tyranny, a complete perversion of his actual philosophy. This highlights the responsibility that comes with engaging such potent concepts. One must tread carefully. However, to dismiss Nietzsche because of these misinterpretations is to throw the baby out with the bathwater. His critique of nihilism, his insights into the psychology of values, and his call for individual responsibility in a meaningless world are more urgent than ever. He forces us to confront the void, not to succumb to it, but to find the strength to create in its face. The death of God is not just a historical footnote. It's an ongoing cultural and psychological process. We see its effects in the fragmentation of shared narratives, the rise of ideological tribalism, and the pervasive sense of existential drift. Nietzsche's diagnosis of this condition, made over a century ago, remains startlingly prescient. Similarly, the specter of the last man looms large. In our pursuit of comfort, security, and entertainment, are we inadvertently cultivating a society that devalues struggle, risk, and the pursuit of greatness? Are we becoming too content with little pleasures, forgetting the human capacity for profound self-transformation? Nietzsche's warning is a mirror to our times. The challenge, then, is to find our own will to power, not in domination but in creation. How can we, as individuals and as a culture, cultivate the strength to define our own values, to imbue our lives with meaning, and to strive for something beyond mere existence? This requires a shift from passive consumption to active engagement with life. It is an immense undertaking. Nietzsche offers no easy answers, only hard questions and the imperative to live authentically and courageously. His philosophy is a call to awaken from dogmatic slumber, to take responsibility for our own existence, and to participate in the ongoing creation of human meaning. This is a burden, yes, but also a tremendous freedom. To engage with Nietzsche is to engage with the most profound challenges of modernity. His harsh truths are not meant to crush us, but to galvanize us. They are a bitter medicine, perhaps, but one intended to cure us of our illusions and to make us stronger, more resilient, and more capable of shaping a future worthy of human potential. Key takeaway 1. The death of God signifies a profound cultural shift, the collapse of a divinely ordained moral order, leaving humanity to grapple with the source and nature of its values. This event unleashes the potential for nihilism, but also the necessity for human value creation. Key takeaway 2. Nihilism, the sense that life is meaningless, is a direct consequence of this collapse. Nietzsche warned against succumbing to passive despair or the comfortable mediocrity of the last man, who seeks only trivial pleasures and avoids all struggle. This is a fate to be actively resisted. Key takeaway 3. The will to power is the innate drive for growth, self-mastery, and creative expression. It's the force that can overcome nihilism by forging new, life-affirming values. The Übermensch, or overman, is the ideal of one who fully actualizes this creative power, living beyond conventional morality and shaping their own meaning. This is the ultimate individual. Join us as we journey through Nietzsche's most challenging ideas. We will confront the abyss of nihilism he described, examine his critique of societal complacency, and explore his controversial concept of the will to power. This is not a journey for the faint of heart, but for those who seek to understand the deepest undercurrents shaping our world and our own potential. The truths are harsh, but ignoring them is far more dangerous. Nietzsche's philosophy is not a set of doctrines to be passively accepted, but a set of tools for critical self-examination and a call to courageous living. He challenges us to ask, Are we living in accordance with values that affirm life or those that diminish it? Are we striving to overcome ourselves or settling for comfort and conformity? The answers define us. In a world still grappling with the echoes of God's death, where meaning often feels elusive and societal pressures immense, Nietzsche's harsh truths remain profoundly relevant. They serve as a stark reminder of our freedom, our responsibility, and the ever-present challenge to become who we truly are, to forge our own destiny, and to say a resounding yes to life in all its terrible beauty. The choice, as always, is ours. Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century philosopher with the piercing gaze and the equally piercing prose, was a man who dared to look into the abyss of human existence. He was not a system builder in the traditional sense, but a provocateur, a diagnostician of Western culture's spiritual malaise. His works, like Thus Spoke Zarathustra and Beyond Good and Evil, are not easy reads, but they are essential for understanding the currents that pull us today. His declaration, "God is dead," is perhaps his most infamous and widely misunderstood. It was not a triumphant cry of atheism, but a somber observation about the decline of traditional religious belief as the unquestioned foundation of Western morality, meaning, and culture. For Nietzsche, this death was a cataclysmic event, the most important of recent times, one whose consequences were only beginning to unfold. Nietzsche saw that the Judeo-Christian God had served as the ultimate guarantor of objective truth and universal moral laws. With the erosion of faith in this transcendent authority, the entire edifice of Western values was left without its keystone. The "thou shalt" and "thou shalt not" commandments, which once seemed divinely ordained, now appeared as human constructs, open to question, doubt, and ultimately dismissal. The immediate psychological implication of this death was the terrifying prospect of nihilism. If there is no God, no divine plan, no inherent purpose in the universe, then what is the basis for any values? Why is anything right or wrong? Nietzsche understood that this realization could lead to a profound sense of disorientation, despair, and the feeling that everything is permitted because nothing ultimately matters.